Welcome to BNEWS Weekly Year in Review 2025. My guest is John Danizio. Welcome, John. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. And I know it has nothing to do with town government, but in review, we watched the Patriots Sunday night. Give me your opinion of that no pass interference call on Keishon Boutte.
Brutal call. I woke up everyone in my house yelling at the TV like a lunatic,
Me too.
like I always do. Even the announcers, who are always impartial, we'll say, even they couldn't believe it.
Pro referee, yeah.
Unbelievable.
But in any event, all's well that ends well, and the Patriots did knock off the Ravens, although we lost a number of players. But enough of that. Let's go into the year of review. And how would you characterize Burlington 2025? Challenging?
For me personally, a little bit, but rewarding also. Yeah. A lot going on in 25 with my transition from back
which
in
you
May.
made look pretty simple, pretty easy.
Well, I'm glad it looked simple. It was a little different for me. Have been here for 7 years at that time, and sort of I knew the Burlington way, if you will. Mm-hmm. But the transition really for me was to see, okay, what's my style going to work like with our department heads. And one of the things I really wanted to improve on with me personally was communications. Not just external communications, since we've hired a communications officer, but also me communicating with the Board of Selectmen, me communicating with all the department heads, and communication being a two-way street. Also, me being there for them when they, need advice or whatever, or want to run something by you, and just making sure I had an open door policy and didn't lose, because I already had a relationship with all of them, that now that I'm in a new position, I really should make sure that that's still going to work for them too. So it's been, like I said, rewarding, challenging for sure.
There were other adjustments which made it a little bit easier in terms of the number of new people that came into key positions in the team.
Yeah. I think the year of transition, we'll call it, for 25. I think there were 8 department heads. Or maybe 7 department heads technically. One of them isn't retiring yet, but we had a turnover of a long-term clerk, a turnover of Mr. Municipality, Gary Giannino, which has a lot of institutional knowledge there. Christine Shrewin left after 20 plus years in our youth and family services. We had Joanne Faust, who didn't leave, but the hiring of a new HR director. So Joanne moved from doing the town and school together. God bless her for doing it as long as she did, to doing just the school department. Obviously, Paul left after a long time here, and we were able to hire Patrick Lawler. Has been a great addition to our team. And Andy Connerty, who's the fire chief for several years now, will be leaving in January, so that's another transition. I guess we'll count that as a 26 transition. And then we were able to add a communications position with the budget. So how does that person, join the team? What's that going to look like? For that position, we were able to take a slower approach with it and put the entry plan together. We got Laura. I don't know if Laura's been here and done something with them.
We're planning.
So we sort of had, come on in, look, listen, and learn. Let's put a plan together of a phased plan, and our first phase was to sort of get our social media accounts and profile under one roof. So that's been done. Sort of a newsletter, which may have, by the time this airs, may have already gone out. Our initial town-wise newsletter, which is a great thing, and then also to get kind of control and update in sort of a plan for the website, and all of that's kind of phase one, and it's kind of ending now after our first few months. So looking forward to what the next phase.
That doesn't mean that when I need a department head interview, I'm going to have to go through the communication.
No. You won't have to check with their manager.
So here's the problem, as I view it as a resident, is you have a lot of new young talent. Are we going to be able to keep them here for a lengthy period of time?
Well, I hope so. The one thing, that sounds like a lot of turnover, and it is. But since I've been here, 8 years, and even before that, the turnover that we experience is retirement turnover.
Mm-hmm.
It's people come to Burlington to work here, and they pretty much stay here, especially at the department head level. I like to think because they just love working with me, but it's a great place to work. You know, we treat our employees great, and there's always a lot going on here. That whatever their profession is, whatever their there's plenty to pique their interest to do here. That's the way I look at it.
Now, police station is one of the big events going on this year. Let's talk about. We knew the process. We've covered that here before. Where are we in it? First of all, in knocking down the building, because we want to get some film of that, okay, for posterity. But also the funding of design work, and then the bonding of the actual construction. I think you did the design work out of free cash or bond anticipation notes. How is that going to proceed going forward to fully come on board with the financing?
Sure. So the financing of it, we had a very small feasibility study that was done for $150,000 previous to the project, and that was done out of free cash. And then the project was approved at 46.2 million, say, was approved by town meeting. At the subsequent town meeting, we approved $5 million from free cash instead of doing what would have been the first bond anticipation note for this year, it would have been the end of last fiscal year and this year. We used $5 million for free cash for both the police station and the Fox Hill. So essentially knocking both of those, whatever we're going to have to bond for both those projects, down by $5 million. So we haven't technically borrowed.
So you're not going to replace that through a bond issue back into free cash or
Nope.
back into stabilization?
That's not the plan as of now. That would just lower the amount that we're going to borrow at the end. So the good news on the police station is we have the bids in. If you've driven by there, you see there's activity going on. If you're on my way here, there's a giant pile of dirt behind it. And hopefully we'll start seeing that building coming down very soon over the next couple of weeks. But as far as the financing of it, those bids came back very favorable to the town. We'll likely have to borrow another $5 million less. So that's a huge percentage of the project came in under budget, which is great news. And hopefully we experience the same on Fox Hill. We don't know yet because that's still out to bid, and the bids aren't due back till after the new year. But it's a very favorable market right now with the lack of private building going on.
Right.
With
no cranes in Burlington. How unusual.
Yeah, not even that many in Boston.
Right.
So that's great news for us. If in the end, instead of having to bond what we originally thought, 46 million, then it was down to 41 million, and now maybe it's at 35, 36 million. That's all good news for the operating budget going forward. Bond rates have been pretty steady.
We've had two Fed cuts. Do you anticipate that that will affect the ratings?
Yeah, they have less effect on municipal ratings than they do on like your mortgage, but they do have a little effect. So for a reference, recently two towns that are AAA rated, one, Reading, is very comparable to Burlington as far as all as that goes. They issued about 60 million of 20-year notes, and that was like 3.3 million. And Lincoln they're also AAA, they did 25-year notes, and those are about 3.8 million. So all of our projections, we did
3.8%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Net interest rate.
Net interest
so
rate.
that's pretty great news for us, because in our projections we were conservative and we said, okay, 25-year notes at 5%. Now we might not be exactly 25. We'll see what happens when we work with our...
In terms of the duration, you're not sure whether 20, 25, 22, et cetera.
Yeah, so if we have to issue bands, we may not lengthen out the time we're going to have to do it. Or if it's favorable and our financial advisors recommend it, we may just go straight to a bond this year, borrow the whole project, get that rate at...
So do you anticipate bundling Fox Hill in that bond as well, or are you going to have overlap?
Yeah, I don't think they'll be ready cash flow wise, and school projects just take a little longer
Right.
to build. It's more of a 20+ month build out, where the police station's probably less than that from the actual build out. So there'll be some bundling of short term debt with if we issued a bond for the police station now, we'll also be issuing a bond for Fox Hill. So there'll be some bundling, but they won't be.
Now, what about the transition into the water treatment plant? That's already done. You've already moved everybody down there. Was the funding for that, and how much was that to convert that into an operating police station?
Yep. So that was included in that budget. So that number I was talking about included what when we first did the design, the estimate, we had about $2 million estimated for temp space. At that time, we didn't know what the temp space was going to be. It could have been trailers. It could have been renting a commercial area. As we moved on with the project and 171 Middlesex Turnpike became a possibility, we knew we were probably going to spend a little bit more than that $2 million, but we were also going to now have an asset. So some of the stuff we did there, we may not have done if we were just going to live there for 2 years and then be out of there. We may have done a little bit. We've done a little bit more to make it ready for what's going to be there next.
Something's going to be in there, whether it be your department's recreation department, et cetera. Something's going to be there.
Town operations will be able to run out of there after they're done with it. So in the end, that probably costs closer to $2.7 million. But again, that still is in that same
and something you
total
won't have to
project cost.
appropriate later.
Yep.
Okay, so let me ask you a question on the police station. Several residents have mentioned that it's terrible that we're knocking that building down. Why wasn't it on the historic register, and was there any justification for keeping a 127-year-old wood structure?
Well, not in my opinion. I'm not sure why it wasn't on the historical register. There was some confusion about that. Some thought it might be, but whatever I can say that whatever was historical about the building, it had vinyl siding on it at the end. That's not a historical material.
Well, that was done during the Boston, when Bank of Boston rented it from us. That was
that's true. Yeah.
The second or third renovation iteration of that building.
Yeah, I will say they looked. They did a bit of exploration about, is there any part of the building you can save that makes sense? And it was 127 years old or whatever it was.
Well, the latest iteration included the gun range, which apparently Chief told me that was salvageable and transferable into the new. So that was a couple of $100,000 saved right there.
Yeah. So when they put in the gun range, I think that was the year before I started. They said, this is going to last 25 years. We're hopefully not going to be in that building for another 25 years. So let's make sure we get something that is portable. So that was able to be taken apart, stored, and it will be installed in the new building when we.
Okay, let's talk about financing during the course of the year. The tax rate and classification was set. Give us a chronological preview of the tax rate, the ceiling, the Proposition 2.5 ceiling, the levy, et cetera. Give us a range, and then the budget process starting in January. Go through that for us chronologically.
Sure. So it was one of my favorite things to talk about, so I'm glad it was on here.
Because a lot of people don't understand it, right?
It might not be a lot of people's favorite topic to listen to me talk about, but so we do talk about it. It's funny because the calendar, the budget calendar starts, and we always make fun because we're in calendar 2025 right now, having budget meetings, and we're in calendar 2025, we're in fiscal 2026, and our budget meetings are for fiscal 2027. So at one point, we're talking about three different things. And so we've already started this fall. We start getting in depth with departments and say, okay, right now it's helpful. We have contracts for 5 of the 6 of our, or 4 of the 5 of our unions, and that's.
Let me guess, the firefighters are last.
Firefighters are last. We're getting there though. They're actually talking right now as we speak. So we that starts with department heads. We get into the budget. We get into all. This is what you have. Do you still need what you have? Is there anything that are there any efficiencies that have been made where maybe there's some resources we can save, and also is there something we could do better if we spent a little bit more money. So they spend the fall thinking about that. We get to just after the new year and we have what's called the budget guidelines setting, which is we get some of the elected boards together and we say, okay, what do we feel like is the upper limits for where we should try to bring the budget in at. And the budget's made up of, on the expense side is made up of three big chunks, if you will. It's the school operating budget, it's town departments operating budget, and then it's what's called accommodated accounts or undistributed accounts. Those are the accounts like health insurance, the accounts that aren't in a particular budget because it would,
it's townwide.
it would just blow that budget away. So what we've been trying to do since I've been here is to try to bring the operating budgets in a range between 3 and 4.5%. Try to bring the accommodated or undistributed accounts in between 4 and 8%, and that sort of lands you at a levy growth of about 4 to 5, somewhere between 3.5 and 5%. So what does that mean dollar-wise for the average single-family bill? It probably means somewhere between 200 and 350 increase annually. So that's sort of the guidelines meeting. I just merged two things on you there, but that's the guidelines meeting, and then we submit a budget to Ways and Means in February, and then Ways and Means starts meeting with those department heads and going through their budgets and having their approval process, which you're very familiar with from serving on that for a long time. And then that gets us to a May town meeting where you submit all the planned expenses and revenues for the town. That gets approved by a town meeting in May, and then we close out the fiscal year. We start a new year where we just approve the money in May, we can spend it. We start going through the year, we close it out, we get what's called free cash certified by the state. So that's what was unreserved cash from the previous year that is now available for us to appropriate in the next year. That happens in the fall, and then right on the tail of that, we set the tax rate, which is kind of funny that you're now setting the tax rate to pay for everything that you approved spending for in May. So when we have those meetings and we say, they say, well, this is, this is a surprise or whatever. This is too much. What can we do? We say, well, you can go back in time in May and either not.
Well, it has been a surprise in the past, in a pretty good streak of favorable results, and that we've grown free cash at that point.
Yep.
What is our free cash position currently, and what is our stabilization account value at this point?
So free cash was certified at just over 27 million, right in the ballpark of where we thought it would. So that's good news that there weren't any big surprises there. Stabilization is about 13 million. So that's pretty good news. Free cash, we have a few articles in January that traditionally come from free cash. It's a couple $1 million for the water. I don't want to get off course here, but what happens is when we planned to join the MWRA, they set up a multi-yeared approach to increase rates by a certain amount each year for 10 years, but that the spending isn't going to match up perfectly to those increases. And because we don't have an enterprise fund yet, I'll say yet, we needed a way to capture those revenues, because we would have brought in more revenues, but since we didn't have the expense yet, those would have just closed the free cash.
That's really us buying into the cost of connecting as well as undertaking a good portion of their debt, right?
Correct. So we take that money that comes in through the additional rates, it closes to free cash. We then transfer it from free cash into what's called our water stabilization fund in January. And then in May, we come back and we say, okay, that money we put in the water stabilization fund in January, we're now going to use it to fund the water operations for this coming year. So it's been kind of confusing to people because they hear water stabilization in and out. Hopefully we'll do our last borrowing for the whole connection project this year, and then we will, we'll have all the debt, all the expenses will be on the books, and hopefully we can work our way to.
We'll be fully on board in terms of the connection, providing us with the water that we need for our daily capacity. What will be cheaper for us to use? Cheaper to use the reservoir water, or cheaper to use the MWRA water?
So that's been different. We have that conversation a lot. There's a member of the Ways and Means that makes us have that conversation all the time. Frank.
Yeah.
Shout out, Frank. So that Brian does do that all the time. I can't remember where we land on that right now, but that's mostly what sparked the conversation about moving to the enterprise fund so that they can now have the water and sewer operations funded by water and sewer fees, and maybe it saves people that use less water, saves them some money, and the people that heavier users pay a little bit more money. But that wasn't your question. Your question was, what's cheaper, buying it from the MWRA or making
Frank's thesis was that we probably shouldn't have bothered to upgrade the reservoir, that we could just go and buy it from the MWRA and shut that facility down until an emergency arose. Has that been proven or unproven at this point?
I think that is part of it. That part is mostly true. What we miss, what isn't part of that calculation, is then we only have one water source for the town, that if something happens to that water source, whatever it is, someone cuts a line in Lexington or Arlington, and before the water even makes it to us, then we lose the system. So,
which has happened previously in the past.
Yeah. So
on the water Quabbin line,
I think having redundancy is paramount. If that meant another MWRA connection from a different part of the town and they weren't on the same loop per se, and we could protect the town that way, that's probably worth exploring further.
Only if you're interested in being able to flush the toilets for a couple of weeks during an emergency.
Yeah, you want the water to come out when you turn the faucet on, and you want the water to leave when you flush the toilet.
Precisely. Okay, let's go to the revenue side now. And this is another confusing aspect of town government. Where are we in terms of 2.5, the levy limit, what growth we have to utilize, and what concern do we have about falling commercial rates, commercial values?
Okay. That last part is the part that keeps me up at night, but I'll start with what is Prop 2.5. So the Proposition 2.5 is what the limit that the town can tax the taxpayers, both residential and commercial, and that has a value. And that value, so for us, like say it's 170 something million. That value grows every year by 2.5, which is Prop 2.5, and then also by new growth. So if 2.5 on 170 million, but whatever that number works out to be, that increases the levy limit every year by that. And then if we had $1 million of new growth or $5 million of new growth, that would also increase the levy. So now that's just what's called the levy limit. So that's the most you can tax the taxpayers.
Now, can that be depressed if values drop?
So that itself won't move. That will go up if that isn't going to have anything to do with the actual values. That goes up again by 2.5, and then new growth, which new growth is property that's being taxed for the first time. So think addition on a house, new building, huge renovation on a building, new tax base, that's going to go up by. If values tanked, that number still stays the same.
It does.
It's still that's how much you can that's how much you can raise on,
because that's how much you need to levy against the taxpayer to pay the annual budget.
Yeah, that's the maximum. What we're talking about. That's the maximum. So what actually happens is we levy less than that. We've never been a tax to the max community. There are a lot of communities that, even though their budget doesn't call for it, will raise the entire levy and then use the amount they don't need for stabilization or for other things. We just traditionally have not done that here in Burlington, where 15 million, say, under the levy limit. 15 million sounds like a huge number, but it can go away fast when we do our 5-year projections. If all we had was 2.5, if all we could grow is 2.5 every year, then
you'd be cutting.
It's gone. It's services. It's things that are going away. So that's what in the levy here, we're at about, I think, 155 million, say, that's levied. So the way the budget works is, on the revenue side, is we set the expense budget. Now there's a certain amount we're going to get for state aid, a certain amount that we're going to collect in local receipts, meals tax,
hotel tax,
motor vehicle, excise tax,
personal property,
permits, things like that. That all comes off, and then the rest is what you're levying. So the rest is what you're asking the taxpayers to pick up. So so tax rate, we're going to move to rates a little bit.
Well,
when we just
add classification in there too.
Yep, so at classification, we come, we have a public hearing and we take all this information we just talked about and we say, our calculations show that we have to raise $155 million against the levy, and that will produce a tax rate of this. So we have the classification, and what that means is the town is going to decide whether to charge everybody the same rate, commercial and residential, or they're going to shift the tax burden. So,
And we have a split classification law. We have that that split by law.
yeah, so anyone can do it at their classification. Those that are a single rate probably aren't moving off of a single rate, and anybody that has ever shifted more onto the commercial side is probably never going to start bringing that back.
Right.
So what you're allowed to do when you split the tax rate at the classification hearing is you're allowed to change the tax rate so that the commercial rate can be 1.75, so 175% of what a single rate would have been. So a single rate for us is around $15. If we taxed everybody the same, everybody would pay about $15 per thousand of their value.
Right.
When you shift, the residential rate goes down from that 15 and the commercial rate goes up from that 15. Currently, so for last year, we were 8.66 as a residential rate, so that's $8.66 per 1,000 value of your property, and the commercial rate was 25.47.
So if we did have a single rate, you're talking about an average home of $720 or so,
Yep.
would go from $6,400 to $12,800 if we had it.
Yeah, it would go up.
It would go up substantially. It would double.
And when we do the classification hearing, that's one of the examples we show. For illustration only, we say
right,
this isn't something you would want to adopt.
No.
And so we point to that of, any residents that say, what do we get for having all these businesses in town, and what about this taxes, the traffic and everything, and we say, well, it's about $6,000 on the average single family
On your home, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we set the rates this year. They, still very favorable rates. The value went from $782 to $820 of our single family home. So the rate went up 3 cents. It went from $866 to $869. So if your home stayed the same value, you would have only paid 3 cents more, about $22 a month, say, 24 bucks.
Right.
But the average single family home went up $40,000 in value.
Right.
So now you're paying the full rate for another $40,000.
Now, when we're not at the full 1.75%, 175% of classification.
Not yet.
Did we, not yet, did we move it all in the direction of commercial, or did we pretty much keep the split the same?
So our shift last year, it was just under 1.73 or 173%. We're at 1.7. There's very little movement for this year.
Right.
And that's a result of our residential rates continue on a nice steep growth, but our commercial rates are flat at best, and in some cases, not even flat. So that's we made a concerted effort not to max the shift.
Right.
Kind
of keep money in the wallet.
Yeah,
insulated.
and you're putting more of a burden on the values that are growing the least.
Right.
It's just.
Well, speaking of that, let me go back to other revenue generators, which is, what do we call that? Other revenue, hotel, meals, personal property, permits.
Yep.
Permits 5 years ago were between $5 and $7 million, I think, added onto the revenue stream. Where is that today?
Yeah. So permits are a huge generator of our free cash here, because what we do with our local receipts, that category of revenues, is we try to budget the revenues on something, whether it's a 3 or 5 year average, if that makes sense, or in the case like the permits, what would an average year look like? If there wasn't a lot going on, because we don't want to create what's called a revenue shortfall and say, okay, permits and right now, or the past few years investment income are a good example. permits and investment income were well beyond what was budgeted. But if you move your budget up to where the actuals that you've been bringing in,
and interest rates drop and your investment income drops and building drops, you have a shortfall.
Yeah, so we only budget about $1.5 million for permits, and we'll likely be over that this year, but not several million over like we have in the past.
And most of that will probably come from the residential side.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm. How about the COVID recovery in terms of primarily the meals and hotel taxes?
So hotel's not quite back to where it was. It's getting there, though. It's better than I thought it was ever going to get to. Meals is going to be, last year was the highest meals taxed that we've had. Now, is that because there's more activity? It seems as though there is. If you go out in Burlington, like I do all the time, you see a lot of people.
You got to make a reservation now. Even at lunch at the Escadrille, I was shocked the last couple of months.
Or is a portion of that prices have gone up, drastically. So that probably a little bit of both. For us, it's either way, it's still good news for us. It's,
but bad news for the consumer, good news for the municipality.
But yeah, in that area. We've had full recovery in those areas. I don't see any local receipts that are lagging below what pre-COVID numbers were. And like I said, we had things that were able to make up for it, like investment income for the last few years, just being outstanding. But who knows how long?
Well, when you run 150 million through whatever 179 million, you expect to make some money, unless you put it in a 0.25% savings account, which I know we don't.
And there's no way our treasurers would let that happen.
That's for sure, and still be treasurer. Let's talk about mixed use. Well, let's talk about values for a second. I know I was stunned by this, but Burlington Woods number 4 Burlington Woods was purchased by MetLife in 2022 at $103 million. Northeastern just bought it for $33 million. And that's a double-edged sword. First of all, the value dropping like that, but then on top of that, Northeastern is a nonprofit. Right. How do you see that trend affecting the town? In what way?
Well, hopefully that specific type of transaction doesn't continue to happen where an exempt owner buys more property, because that's a big hit to us. It could eventually go from a $30 million building to zero value for that of taxable.
After coming down from $100 million value, right?
So that's we probably never had it we probably never had it assessed at $100 million.
We did.
Probably hadn't got that, but
$185,000 I think was its total tax yield.
So we've seen that has happened a few times here. There's a few examples of places selling it. I mean, it's probably a poor use of the phrase, but for pennies on the dollar. And hopefully this is a small blip and not something that's going to last a few years, because we've seen some buildings that have a good value that are selling significantly lower. So that owner is going to be coming to us and saying, well, you're taxing me at this, I just bought it for this. So that, you're well aware of what the abatement process is, and there is a process for those owners to go through.
Now, has that accelerated of recent note?
It has. The way the process works for us is we budget about $1 million annually for abatements. We only abate through the programs that we have about $300,000. So we have about $700,000 annually to protect us against anything.
This
like
is
that
in the overlay account.
This is in the overlay. So if you what does that mean in terms of value? That's about $7 million. That's about $28 million worth of value that would need to decrease to use up that $700,000. But we have seen that a couple times now. So if that's the trend, that's why I stay up at night. Hopefully that isn't the trend.
Well, Macy's is one of the ones that keeps you up at night, I'm sure. We've got 7 years of abatements there, I think. And what is the defense for the town in terms of the values? What is that process?
So if it's the ATB, which is the Appellate Tax Bureau, that means someone came to us, filed an abatement. We couldn't work out an arrangement with them, so they had to take it to the next level and go to the state to have that adjudicated with them. And that process means our assessors are going to bring in all their backup about why we think that property is valued a certain way, and they're going to do the same. And on their end, they're obviously going to try to make it look. Best case for them is, oh, we bought it at this low, it's empty, we can't make any money on it, and
you're taxing us at full value.
Yeah, and we're going to say, well, it's compared to these other buildings, it's
Right.
worth this much. This area is worth more. So the process, once we get to the ATB, hasn't been a great result for us, especially in the Macy's case. But I think our assessors and that board, they work with people that can make a case and they want to get the values right. They don't they don't want to have these cases go into the ATB either.
Well, it costs hundreds of thousands for both sides. Well, let's talk about the transitioning of values, and we've seen a good deal of it in terms of conversion of really premium commercial properties into these very high density residential values. Now, in order to match the income, you have to have these tremendous increases in the density of the
Right.
residential. Is this going forward, is this a good strategy for the town to follow in terms of, particularly from the planning board standpoint, as that is not net income when you change it to residential,
Right.
because you're going to add into the cost of school children, which, I think it's $22,000 a person.
Yep.
So should we be in opposition? I know town meeting has been very generous in these things. Is that something we want to move away from in the future?
I would say if it were any widespread, like if it was going to be someone was going to say, oh, here's the key to it is to change all of your office into residential. That's certainly something. There would be a lot of pushback from everybody, from residents, from the elected boards, from administration. That's not that's certainly not the way you want to go. But on the one-offs, like for example, the last one at town meeting where Nordblom had come in and we're taking two 1970 era small commercial buildings and had a proposal to make that 188 units, which is well beyond the density that you're referring to.
Well, it's that and the Lifetime and the other two up by the General Cinema. We're talking about almost 1,000 units in that period of time, relatively short period of time.
Yeah, I think the latest one was an example of sort of looking at it case by case. Okay, there is a net increase in value. There's a net increase in tax value there. The taxes that are going to be brought in, not just the value as in what's taxable, but the actual
value
revenue.
as is, not value of potential value.
Yeah.
Which,
As
even
an
though it's
actual
commercial, doesn't mean that it's going to be realized.
Right. So I think I think if there's more of that it's going to be there's going to be a lot harder to look at those sort of things. So there has been zoning changes. So through policy, you can make changes that were like we talked about once before, the zoning at the mall.
Yeah, the mixed use potential.
Right. So that exists, and there's opportunities for folks to do it there. I think if someone were to come and say, Burlington Woods, for instance, we want to make that into apartments, that would be a tough hill to climb for those folks to get that approved.
Right. And how about condos? Is there any way we can put into mixed use the development of condos? This is my argument. We give these huge density to developers who are going to A, take the rental income, and B, they're going to take the appreciation on an annual basis. Whereas if these were condos, all of that appreciation would go to the individual homeowner.
Yeah, I think right now it seems like there's no interest in that from the developer, just because what they say, it doesn't paper well, so the calculation doesn't work out because now that's going to be ordinary income versus
right. If they held it for a year, though, it'd be capital gains. But I understand that argument. I'd rather pay 20% than 38%.
Yeah.
So I can see what their argument is there.
Yeah, and I think when we did the housing needs assessment a few years back, the Housing Partnership had a group in and they did a needs assessment and they surveyed folks in town. I think ownership units, condo units, was very high up on the list of things that they were looking for the town to do.
Right. Well, the state law passed, which enabled you to put another unit on your property with only building inspector approval, I think, doesn't need special permit.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to be accelerating at all in the town.
There's a lot of talk about ADUs. We haven't seen a lot of permits for it, but there are people that are exploring the ADUs and exactly what do they need to do.
What's ADU stand for?
Accessory dwelling unit.
Dwelling
this is
unit,
the what we were called in-laws back in the day.
Right, in those days. But it was reasonably difficult to get one in Burlington. You had to have proof of family was moving in or something like that. So that has changed.
Yeah, so now the statewide push was, the thinking was at the state level, if we approve this throughout the state, it's a way to add housing units. But I think that may be the case as you get closer to the city or in places where there are a lot of rental units. But I think out in the suburbs, it's more of a opportunity to age in place where generations can stay. My kids, now that I'm an old man, can buy my house and I can move into the ADU.
Or I can build something and get an additional income stream to augment retirement. Okay, well, we've beaten that to, I had one more question. I'm beating that to death. We have two really huge developments, individual developments in town. We have the Oracle property and we have the old high voltage property. Now, has there been any inquiries at all? I know there was some talk about Emerson College buying up the Oracle property. This goes back 3 or 4 years, or another huge property in town. Do we hear anything of that ilk going on, or do we hear of Leahy gobbling up more properties in town?
Yeah, so just saying those makes my skin hurt a little bit. Same deal, going to exempt. I haven't heard of a university other than Northeastern buying that one other property, getting a footprint in town. We do hear about Leahy a little bit. Leahy has operations in other buildings other than their main building. Again, if they were to buy all those properties, now there's an avenue for those properties to come off the tax rolls too.
Right.
So.
Well, we have a tax in lieu of tax agreement that goes back to when they came in, which they have never really kept to. What are we getting? We used to get $1 million plus out of them in lieu of taxes. What is it down to now? Somewhere in the order of 360 or something like that.
So just for straight cash to us, it's $520,000.
Well,
so that has
better
been
than expected.
It's been like that for a while. Also, there's plenty of towns that have a hospital in their town that get nothing.
Yeah, I know that's their argument, but that those people weren't hornswoggled into changing a huge swath of land from commercial into a hospital. But be that as it may, that's a burr under my saddle from 40 years ago. Now let's talk about ICE. A lot of talk about that going on. Demonstrations, the ribbon cutters out campaigning. We know there's an election coming up because they're out here. What can be done there? I mean, there's a supremacy clause. Basically, the town's hands are tied.
Yeah, unfortunately, the town's hands are tied. There's, the town has explored and exhausted every legal option. Our legal counsel is in constant contact with the AG's office in Mass to see if there's anything new that has come up that they could take. We did go to court to seek an administrative action to let the building inspector in. After there was complaints or allegations of some misuse of the facility, and we were denied. The town and a group of folks are working with the federal delegation on, they've been into
the courts ruled that the Congress people could go in and inspect it.
So they were able to
the operation.
They were able to go in and verify that there have been changes made since June when they first went through. Most recently, Congressman Moulton and his office was able to go through there, and then they were able to give the town a full debrief after. And recently, there's been ICE was able to confirm, and the Congressman's office was able to confirm that facility has brought beds in the unlikely event they have to keep people over.
Right.
Their words, not mine. That they have to keep people overnight. That they have beds for them to lay in. They have confirmed that there's shower facilities and that they have access to food. So the real concern.
Which it seems unlikely to me that they were denying people food in there if they had to stay over extra days.
Yeah, I'm just going by what the reports were.
Right. So, I mean, there's not going to be any change there in terms of the use of the building. It's going to be used for housing and for transporting undocumented or illegal, depending on your point of view, conservative or liberal.
Yeah, if there was changes, it would be from Homeland. It would come down from Homeland Security. There's not a state or congressional or local action that can be taken to change the use.
Let's go on to the transition that happened before you took over as the head of the community, and that's the Route 3A expansion, or whatever we want to call it, the transition into Candyland. How is that progressing in terms of acceptance by the community, and what problems have you seen that have arisen?
Yeah, so I think when we talked about it at one of the times, it had just happened.
Yeah.
And I told you how I drive that road every day, and that maybe I just hadn't heard from folks yet, and that's why I didn't think. But honestly, we do, unless people have found a different avenue to go through, issue their complaints to, other than just people that don't wish it wasn't laid out the way it was.
Right.
There hasn't been complaints of massive amounts of traffic or big congestion areas, other than what was there before. Right. So we've been very lucky.
I think the biggest argument has been people not recognizing the yield, the differences in the yields.
Bus lane versus
right.
And right off the bat, that was someone in our office came in and said, I don't know if I'm supposed to drive through that. I said, if there's a bus in it, you don't drive through it. If there isn't, you can drive through it.
And you can yield into the left-hand lane. So now in terms of transportation, how is the lift program? That was this was, I think, the first full year this past year?
Oh, it's been around for since COVID. Has it been that long?
Yeah.
It started right when COVID started, so 2020. So it's been around for a long time. It's very popular. To the point where now we're going to have to decide what that
expansion limits are.
Yeah, where is that? What are the guardrails we need to put in for that? So, I know you'll remember we replaced. This was an idea to replace an inefficient, expensive system.
B-line, sure.
The B-line. So now there's a lot of flexibility with this. It's a great system as far as that goes, but we're going to be approaching the cost of the B-line. Is that where the town wants to wind up? Because right now there's only a couple revenue sources for it. There's the operating budget, and then there's we get
MBTA something or other, right? Subsidy?
We get TNC subsidy. So we get for 10 cents for every ride that Uber, Lyft, any ride share that starts in Burlington, we get 10 cents from it. So it's taxed at 20 cents. The town gets 10, the state gets 10.
Well, what about the MBTA supplement, underwriting that we got for the B-line?
Yeah, so that program went away when we started this. It was one of the reasons we were thinking of what other system could we have, because a big revenue stream was going away.
Yeah. Well, it was three buses originally. Then it went down to 2 buses, and then it just became one bus that nobody was riding in. So it made perfect sense for the door-to-door campaign to be.
Yeah, and it's that the way the program works, if you qualify for it, there's a $10 subsidy. So you pay the first $1, town pays 10, then you start paying after $11 up. So if someone has a $15 doctor's appointment, they're only paying $5
plus a tip or whatever. But still it's quite a, and I would imagine it has some traffic impact in the sense that we have a lot of local watering holes these days, and sometimes people abuse that, and this has been a perfect safety precaution as it relates to that.
Yeah, I think, so what we'll have to talk about with a much bigger group is what do we want to see the cost at, and then what does that mean? Do we change the qualification limitations, or do you just decrease the subsidy and go from $10 subsidy to $8 subsidy or something like that? And what makes more sense to do? Because you do have to qualify to be able to use it.
What are we at in terms of expense right now?
So we appropriate $250,000, and we have another $35,000, say, from the TNC. So the money that comes from the 10 cents that comes from the.
But as I recall, the upper limits of the Beeline expense was in the $500,000 range.
Yeah, it was in between 400 and 500. Yeah. So that's
so
what
we got a lot of room there for new adherents.
The third source of funding was the balance that was in the revolving account that we've been coming down. So there's our projections show that we're going to be in the $400,000 to $500,000 a year or two out. So we got to start figuring that out now.
Right.
It's a very popular program, so it's great.
Yeah. Great. Now, what about capital budget items that are coming up? I know this isn't a 2025 issue, but you've been thinking about them. I know a couple of the Green Mountain tank, the Center Street tank, and the one across from Mary Cummings Park. Those tanks are old.
Yep.
So have you got them on the schedule for replacement or refurbishment?
Yep. So Greenleaf is the next one up. It'll be on our capital list. That comes up next, and it'll sort of be they'll review it. They'll go in, they'll take a peek at it and see as it can be sandblasted and painted. Does it need more repairs than that? Right. God forbid it needs a replacement. What does it need?
Well, they do get some wear on the inside from the ice sheet that forms, right, and moves up and down. Is that a concern in these tanks?
Well, they'll know when they go in and explore it. So they'll be doing that. We'll ask for money to do that this year, and then the following year there'll be money on there. That review will also provide an estimate of work to do. So maybe, worst case scenario, it's a replacement, and then it would be a few years out, or it's just that ordinary, a little bit more of a deeper maintenance from the wear and tear.
Okay, let's move on to sewer. That's always a popular subject. Fortunately, we didn't have any disasters this year. I know we had a couple of breaks. We had a couple of water main breaks.
Yep.
Was it a normal or abnormal year in terms of maintenance and surprises in those categories?
So far it's been normal. We're not. So for calendar year, yes, it was a normal year. We didn't have anything catastrophic or anything to write home about. We do have the last of our biggest pump stations that's going to be up for a Douglas Street, I think, is the last one.
Okay, a lift station that moves it down to.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So that'll be the last kind of big ticket item of those. Now, the biggest ones that we replaced, but I forget what Tom Hayes just told me the other day. We have 13 or 14 of them throughout the town, and this will be the last bigger one. And then the other smaller ones are a much lower scale value of cost-wise to rehab them. But you'll have a Douglas Street replacement that'll be on there. Those are several $1 million when you got to replace the force main. And
there's no delay in those.
No.
Now, last year, or was it the year before, you instituted, or your department instituted, just no contractors for snow removal? Has that been ongoing? I think last year used all town equipment for snow removal.
No, we have contractors. We've actually in order to remain competitive with getting contractors, we just don't have enough pieces or people to be able to battle the snow with just our folks. Right. So we have a lot of contractors, and we reset the rate. We had a long time rate, and we started losing long time folks. Right. So now we sort of see what the rate out there is and try to remain competitive. Just having all these roads, and like I said, we just don't have enough people in DPW and rec to get it all done. Right.
Okay, and lastly, what would you consider to be the accomplishments, your accomplishments, and the town's accomplishments over the past year?
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Well, just making it to the end of 25 is quite an accomplishment.
That unto itself, right?
I guess, when you have that much turnover and that much knowledge, institutional knowledge lost, being able to sort of handle all of that and maintain a continuity of services, that's probably our biggest thing. It doesn't sound like it's that big a deal, but there's a lot of years lost from the team.
Exactly. Giannino, 40 years in various positions.
Right.
Certainly the HR director was here over a decade.
Yeah, Amy was long-term.
Yeah.
Christine, I forgot to mention the building department also has a new building commissioner. So
yeah, and then last year I guess we put on a new assessor. Or was it 2 years ago? That was another transition.
Assessor,
3 years maybe.
Yeah, a few years now, Paul. Wow.
Yeah, great. Well, okay. Anything else you'd like to add? That kind of brings us to the conclusion of the review, and maybe you'd like to give us a preview of what your big goals are for the next year.
So I think goals for next year are, we're sort of trying to get a real capital improvement plan in place and buy-in from everybody, so we don't have projects that kind of come up. Yeah. So we're trying. That's a process. That's a big one. I think to try to not lose sleep on values. We'll try, I know that Melissa is her economic vitality group will be meeting regularly and kind of focusing on what we're doing on the economic development side.
Well,
too.
maybe we should sell advertising on the side of municipal buildings, right?
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, in any event, I'm glad to see that you didn't say your primary goal was to reduce your golf handicap. Right? That's mine every year, but I keep failing. It's like losing weight, Every year it's my goal, and every year I set a new higher goal. Great. Okay, well, that wraps us up. My guest has been John Danizio. John, as always, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And for ladies and gentlemen out there, which camera am I on? Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. We'll see you on the news at the beginning of 2026. Thank you for joining us.